Says there isn't a serial killer operating in Houston after several dead bodies were recently pulled from local bayous. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also speak with Tony Payan of Rice University's Baker Institute, who'll break down the TN visa, a key, yet often overlooked, part of the U.S. labor market.
And I'm Frank Billingsley, plus Kristen Thompson, Executive Director of the Galveston Island Humane Society, will tell us more about the pet shelter's mission and their upcoming gala.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Amazon has agreed to settle a landmark case over its Prime membership program, according to U.S. regulators who had alleged the company's web designs manipulated tens of millions of people into paying for subscriptions that were purposefully hard to cancel. The Federal Trade Commission says Amazon, without admitting wrongdoing, has agreed to pay a historic $1 billion in civil penalties to the government and an additional $1.5 billion in redress payments to affected consumers. The parties reached a deal as trial was just beginning in Amazon's hometown of Seattle. Somewhat unusually, for a dense antitrust case, a jury was slated to determine whether Amazon broke the law. The White House says that if there is a government shutdown on October 1st, it won't just furlough federal workers, it will permanently lay them off. NPR's Tamara Keith reports on the memo disclosed to NPR after President Trump Tuesday canceled a planned meeting today with Democratic congressional leaders.
President Trump says he wants congressional Democrats to agree to a short-term bill keeping government funding at current levels. If they don't, there's now a threat of consequences. In a memo to agency heads obtained by NPR, the White House Office of Management and Budget says that if there is a shutdown, they expect agencies to issue reduction in force notices to employees working on projects that are not consistent with the president's priorities. This would be a significant shift from past government shutdowns when employees were only temporarily furloughed. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called it an attempt at intimidation. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
The FBI says it is investigating yesterday's shooting at a Dallas Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility. Officials say they consider this an act of targeted violence. From member station KERA, Toluwani Osibamawo reports 1 immigration detainee is dead and 2 are in critical condition.
Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons identified the shooter to CBS News as Joshua John. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. John most recently lived in Fairview, a suburb north of Dallas. One of his neighbors, Sherry Davis, says their neighborhood is small and tight-knit, but she didn't know much about John.
I would have never imagined that such a thing, someone that felt so disenfranchised would live so close to me.
Authorities haven't indicated any specific motive, but they did release a picture of 5 unspent bullet casings found at the scene. One had the words anti-ICE written on it. For NPR News, I'm Toluwani Osibamawo in Dallas.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. Closing arguments are being given right now in the case of Tony Earls. We are expecting that a sentence will likely be handed down today. He's the man who was convicted of manslaughter on Tuesday for the shooting death of 9-year-old Arlene Alvarez 3 years ago. Prosecutors showed the jury surveillance footage of another incident involving Earls where he pointed a gun at his stepson at a convenience store. They used that as an argument for a larger sentence yesterday. We'll have the sentencing details for you when they come in right here on News 88.7. Meanwhile, as you just heard on NPR, the FBI says it is investigating that shooting at the Dallas ICE field office as an act of targeted violence. Our Priscilla Rice tells us the incident has escalated fear within the migrant community.
A spokesperson for the Mexican consulate in Dallas says the victim's name isn't being released, but a representative has been in touch with the family to provide support and legal advice. Federal authorities say 2 detainees were injured in the shooting. A third was killed. According to a news release from the Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs, local representatives from the consulate are in communication with U.S. authorities conducting the investigation. They are awaiting authorization to visit the Mexican national in the hospital. In the news release, the ministry said it is committed to protecting and defending the rights of Mexican nationals living outside of Mexico. I'm Priscilla Rice in Dallas.
The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board held a public hearing this week on the end of the Texas DREAM Act. The law allowed students without legal status to access in-state tuition at public universities. Barbara Hines helped draft the Texas DREAM Act over 2 decades ago. She says the board has not issued guidelines on what constitutes lawful presence. Instead, they recommended universities to reach out to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Forcing a student to sign a consent to reveal his or her records is coercion, making a student decide whether they want to be able to go to school and afford it or to turn their records over to USCIS with an enforcement arm now.
The Trump administration recently gave USCIS the power to enforce immigration laws, including carrying out arrests. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Happy Thursday.
It's Thursday already?
Good morning, everyone.
And it was beautiful out this morning.
Duh.
I mean,
I've been telling you,
amazing.
The lightning and the storms last night, I just loved. I hope nobody was hurt, but I loved watching those storms. We haven't had a good front come through with thunderstorms like that in a long while.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of fun. But now, yes, the payoff is beautiful weather out. Northwest winds are kicking in. Dew points are dropping. It's going to bring the humidity down. We're in for a fabulous weekend.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be outside tomorrow at Dyken Park with the Savannah Bananas. So,
that sounds so appealing.
Exciting.
Yeah. Get it? Appealing. Anyway, so there is. Okay, there's a chance, by the way, out in the Atlantic that an Imelda. Remember, we had Imelda back in
Marcos.
We had a very wet Imelda here 6 years ago. The looks like another Imelda might form in the Atlantic. It could make a run for South Carolina. Ooh. So the tropics have been relatively quiet, as you know, but may not last.
This might be a dumb question, but I can ask dumb questions better than anyone.
There is no such thing as a dumb question.
No, just dumb answers.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz-Sherman. With all that's happening in Asia right now, and with China and the floodings and all of that going on, does that affect us back through here?
Well, generally when the Pacific is really active, the Atlantic tends to be quiet. There's a big upper level system that travels the globe. And when those pressures change, we do see a lot of activity in the Pacific, not so much in the Atlantic. And then they go back, we see more in the Atlantic, not so much in the Pacific. So that it doesn't really affect us, but it is a normal thing to see that. Does that make sense?
They're having a horrible time.
Oh, they often do. They often do. I think because we're not, they're getting more attention. Because ours has been so quiet. It's like, especially people who love talking tropics, they have nothing to talk about except that. Except that.
Well, I was just curious. I was seeing the footage, and I was like, oh, my.
But have a wonderful day. It's going to be beautiful today.
Yes,
and
tomorrow.
I'll be live. Friday football. It's going to be amazing. Your little foray out at Dyken Park.
Yes.
Which, I wish they called it Dakin. Because,
it's not Dakin. It's Dyken,
it's spelled
okay,
Dakin.
Yeah.
It's Dyken.
Okay,
but it'd be like, Shaken Dakin, Dakin Shaken. It would be such a
Frank,
more fun
you
name.
missed your calling of being an ad man.
Branding.
You have
Branding.
had wonderful branding ideas all this week. And see, you just keep doing it.
Oh, right. Make America America again.
Yeah,
a lot of those YouTubers that are watching us right now loved that. Yeah. And so hello to British Guy and Alex.
Which we did receive a really nice email from my British computer guy. And, I want to recognize that sometimes when we're in the moment, we're talking, things do get sometimes misunderstood or misinterpreted. So if you ever feel that way, if we read a comment and you didn't feel like necessarily we read it correctly, please send us an email and we will try to clarify that.
And also, we can't react to all of them. We try and peek in and do it, but we are actually doing a show at the same time. But when we get breaks and stuff, we try and run through and see what you folks are all saying. And if you're listening just and you have no idea what we're talking about, we do. We stream live on YouTube every single day. And so you can join this. There's a very active group of chatters in there. And in addition to that, everything we do is archived on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and see particular interviews again or full shows. And on top of all of that, we have a podcast. So you can download the podcast or you can listen to a commuter cut, which is just a 40-minute version of the full 2-hour show that we put out every afternoon. So on your afternoon commute home, if you miss the show, you got 40 minutes in the car, get the best of us each day.
Yeah, that's usually done by 3, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So it's all out there. We're everywhere.
All right.
Denise does love Ma, so make America America again.
Let's jump in right into the headlines. Houston Mayor John Whitmire said there's no evidence of a serial killer operating in Houston, shutting down a conspiracy theory circulating social media in the wake of multiple dead bodies being pulled from local bayous in the last week.
But let me state, enough is enough of misinformation, wild speculation by either social media, elected officials, candidates, the media. We do not have any evidence that there is a serial killer loose in Houston, Texas. Let me say that again. There is no evidence that there is a serial killer loose on the streets of Houston. If there was, you would hear it from me first.
Whitmire's comments on Tuesday, which he made standing alongside members of the Houston Police Department, including Chief Noe Diaz, refuted social media speculation surrounding the deaths. He attributed the speculation to sensationalism. Between September 15th and the 20th, authorities found 5 dead bodies in different bayous around Houston, including Buffalo and Brays Bayou. Only one has been publicly identified as 20-year-old Jade McKissick, a University of Houston student. And police said they do not suspect foul play. On Tuesday, Houston police too refuted the serial killer theory, noting that while they are awaiting medical examinations and identification of the dead bodies, they do not believe any of the deaths have been connected. Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. What are your thoughts on the police press conferences? Is social media sparking fear? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Before we begin this conversation, I do want to say no disrespect to the families that lost people there, and that to the victims of whatever is causing this, be it natural deaths or accidents or whatever happened. As we learn, we mean no disrespect when we talk about this. But as a concept, as an idea of what we're talking about, it does raise a lot of curiosity and concern.
Well, I think on a broader scale, it's important that we make sure the world knows our city is safe before Donald Trump decides to send the National Guard in here. Yeah. Because he is favoring bluish cities to do that. And the last thing we want is this rumor to spark this idea that somehow Houston has a serial killer and is unsafe, and we need bigger protection down here, because we don't. Our police force does a great job. I feel very safe in this city. I think most people do. And I applaud the mayor for saying, okay, enough is enough.
But I do have to say,
you think the coincidence
sound
is still
clip
there?
Sounds like the beginning of every serial killer movie you've ever seen.
I think this is really interesting, right? Because you do have to ask yourself what is going on. 5 bodies within our bayous is alarming. Now, correct, we are a safe city and we have excellent law enforcement and they are doing great jobs. But you do have to ask yourself, what is going on. And the other thing that I think this is very interesting about, it falls right in the line of the whole true crime podcast listening. There's this whole internet sleuthing phenomena going on where there have been groups that have investigated, crimes that have happened where they're, in a totally other state, but they have figured out and they're putting things together. So I kind of think it's interesting and almost, I don't want to use the word fun, but it's kind of cool to see that there's a group of people that are saying, wait a minute, we're gonna look into this ourselves. I like
the one
that.
part that's missing from the story for me, and I need to do more research into it, is usually how often are dead bodies found in the city? I would think, we have in the area up to 4 million people in our area. People are dying all the time. We have a large homeless population, not as large as some cities, but we do. We have a lot of people that go missing and things like that. Is it that the attention that's being drawn right now is they're finding bodies and such, and one leads you to look for more? Is it really out of the ordinary of how many people there's just attrition that happens in our community?
In bayous, yes.
Well,
I think,
but the only
as somebody
connection-
who runs along a lot of our bayous, and I run down Buffalo Bayou all the time into the city. I've been running, early in the morning.
Right.
Yes, that is not normal.
But
to be finding that amount of bodies.
the only connection is the bayous, right? I mean, they're
And
their
around
bodies,
the
but they're all in the
bayous.
bayous. But the way they died, and usually a serial killer, you can connect.
You start connecting them.
Yeah, it's like this is obviously the work of the same person, and they're not seeing that, or they would have said something, because their first obligation is to warn the public. I mean, if we really do have a serial killer, no one's going to hide that.
Right. I think that's the balance, right, between people saying, I don't want to just rule this out as, we're just really safe and this just happens to happen. We have dead bodies that just, come up all the time. But there's that line, right, between saying we don't have a serial killer. Okay, this is not connected. They're not connected within the same person doing this horrendous crime. However, we need to be looking at what is going on then.
Yeah. A little background here. So they've found a total of 14 total bayou recoveries this year. So 14 compared to 24 last year.
Right. And we're 6 months into the year.
We're 9 months, almost 10 months into the year. So
No.
we're on a lower, we have less bodies being discovered in the bayou this year than last year. I think the sensationalism is 5 of them found within 5 days.
Yeah.
But then if you're a conspiracy theorist, you say, well, wait a minute, how long has this serial killer been going? Did he get 24 last year?
Well, you'd have to ask a medical examiner too. At what point did these people die?
Yeah.
I mean, were the bodies in there a long time, or is it because when you say 5 bodies in 5 days, it sounds like that this is happening every day. But
Yes.
Right.
some of these bodies could
In
have.
total, 14 bodies have been pulled from the Houston bayous in 2025 as of late September. Compared to last year, 24 bodies were recovered from area bayous.
I don't know. I do think that's one is too many.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Period.
That's why I started the conversation with,
one
any
is too many.
loss of life is a
And,
loss of life, and we should be concerned.
And again, we see a lot of YouTube comments coming in. Nicole says, I truly don't think we have a Houston serial killer that's linked to all the dead bodies found in the bayous, but we definitely need to be continued talking about this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's essentially my point, is that I think that I applaud the mayor for coming out and getting in front of it and saying, listen, these are not connected. We do, but the other side to that conversation needs to be, however, we are vigilant and we should not be finding one body in our bayous.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, 713-440-8870. You can join us on Hello Houston by sending us a text or giving us a call.
Another story that's in the news, of course, we've all heard about this. A shooter killed a detainee and injured 2 others outside of an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Dallas after firing from a nearby rooftop Wednesday morning, according to U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The shooter, whose identity has not been released by authorities, I do believe we do know who the shooter is now. It has been released. If not by the authorities, it has been released. I've seen his mugshot, the supposed shooter from a drug bust, I do believe, a drug crime, maybe 9 years ago. But they say that the shooter did die from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The wounded detainees were in critical condition Wednesday. During a news conference, police didn't provide much more detail about the victim, but emphasized that it didn't include any law enforcement officers. FBI Director Kash Patel shared a photo on social media depicting 5 unspent shell casings on the ground with anti-ICE written on one of them. This needs to stop. Violence is wrong. Politically motivated violence is wrong. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz said at the news conference, we should be putting language out there that inspires. We shouldn't be putting, I'm stumbling through this one. We shouldn't put language out there that inspires madmen. What do you think of the shooting? Is anti-ICE rhetoric to blame? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. My mind was racing in all different directions as I read this story. I have seen the casings. It seems very odd that the casings look like that anti-ICE is written in pen. If, in fact, the shooter is going after ICE agents, why were no ICE agents shot? The one report I heard said the shooter was shooting indiscriminately. A eyewitness I saw interviewed on a Dallas news station said that it looked like a gunshot was aimed and targeted. One would go off, await, then the second shot would be shot. So I'm confused.
Again, just to clarify, the suspect has been detained. It was a 29-year-old man, Joshua John, with ties to North Texas and Oklahoma. He's been identified as a subject in the shooting at the Dallas ICE Detention Center. That was the headline that Ernie was just talking about. The investigation is ongoing, and police have not yet released a motive for the shooting. I think when I'm looking at this, when we're asking, what are your thoughts on political rhetoric, given the fact that, we just saw, unfortunately, what happened to Charlie Kirk, and now we're looking at this, what's happening here. Very, very different in situations in some ways, but also I think the conversation goes back to, I want to applaud our elected officials like Senator Cruz, who is stepping up and speaking out and saying, we have to dial back the rhetoric.
You said he was detained. He was dead at the scene. So he wasn't detained. He was.
Okay.
And the question is, they say it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Well, and there's just a rash of these kind of killings, and I don't know that there's anything that can be done about them, because you can't just lock down all tall buildings. These young men that are getting on these buildings, and they're not necessarily, I don't know what he was using, but they're not necessarily using assault weapons. I mean, they're using the kind of hunting weapons you would shoot at a deer with. And so, taking a scope and a rifle and getting on top of a tall building, everyone is vulnerable to this kind of an assassination attempt. And I don't know we haven't had this ever before. Of people getting on buildings and shooting down. We had remember in Las Vegas when that man
was
in the hotel room?
I believe JFK was shot from a hotel room.
No, the book depository.
From the book depository. Right, but it's been few and far between. And now this is becoming the MO of a lot of these disgruntled people. And I think it's a real concern.
The other question becomes motive. And I think when we look at these type of situations, now with how fast information travels, I think it's one of those things where not just does the political rhetoric need to step back, and we need to look at how and being careful with what we are saying, and especially for young, impressionable people, young adults in this country. But also, I'm looking to law enforcement and our elected officials, instead of assuming motive and saying this is an investigation. We are figuring it out before we're assuming any type of motive. Again, 713-440-8870. Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston.
And I don't want to end this discussion without saying that there were detainees that were shot.
Yes.
And these people, we don't even know often why they're being detained. Is it legal? Should they be in this country? Should they not be in the country? Because it didn't say anything about undocumented people were shot. It just said detainees. So we don't know anything about them. But they were taken into custody by the United States government, and then they were not kept safe.
Yes. I think that,
and I don't know that they can be, but there's something there that no one is saying anything about these people that were attacked.
Well, I think it plays into this bigger issue that we keep seeing in situations like this, where information is, I don't want to say sparse, but a lot of the information is not shared. But at the other end of the spectrum, a lot is pushed out way too quickly.
Yeah, that was my point.
Yeah, it's like they're playing at both ends of this. And so Kash Patel's showing this shot of this casing with the writing in it and saying, and then politicians jumping to the side to saying it's activism from this side of the aisle as opposed to that side. It just seems like what happened to the point, and this is truly what I always loved about working in public media. We didn't need to be first with the story. We needed to be accurate with the story. You take a moment and figure out all the information. And it's a problem that's happened in our media is everyone wants to be fast with the news bite, with the news story before you've had the time to investigate it.
Right. That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah. But I was saying, but the issue here isn't necessarily the media, because as the media, that is our job to make sure that we're putting out information very quickly as soon as we get it.
But accurate information.
I think that where the issue that I'm having here is where we're looking at elected officials and we're looking at law enforcement tweeting things or putting things out there, and that's not political. Right. That is simply there's an investigation going on. You let the media know, where we can then put the information out there. We don't know a motive. We don't have a motive yet. We can't assume based on a photo of shells of a rifle that there was a motive.
Unless he left a manifesto, which
they do, and oftentimes
we'll never know. I mean, unless he left something, he's killed himself. So.
Right.
What was the motive here?
He may have spoken with others. He may have shared information with others. I do think, though, it's part of the media's responsibility to put out accurate information, not just to put it out first.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's something we need to do more of. And I think many, many, many years ago, I talked with Walter Cronkite about this. And Walter Cronkite had said that in his day, you reported the news in a half an hour, and you had 23 and a half hours to prepare the next newscast. So you checked sources, you checked information, and then you put out the news that everyone watched. In today's day and age, we grab every single moment and push it out there, because in this 24-hour news cycle, it's very hard to stay on top of these stories.
Well, with all the cameras out there, the news tells itself a lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see for yourself. You can see for yourself what happened at certain events if you want to see the video. Given that it hasn't been doctored by AI, which that again, as we've discussed on this show, that's going to be more and more of an issue of what is real that you are seeing and what is not. But given that if you're seeing something that is real, you're seeing it almost in real time.
Mm-hmm. But now we have to question who's posting that real moment. I mean, I know there's a lot of people concerned about what we're seeing when those casings, that people are questioning these gun casings because of the way it's written anti-ice on it, which then people are saying that doesn't sound like something somebody would write on a single casing and put. But we don't know. We want to believe our elected officials and our appointed officials.
Well, Kash Patel put it out, and he is essentially the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
That's who people are questioning. Imagine because when the Charlie Kirk shooting came out,
it's real.
But when the Charlie Kirk shooting happened, initially he said, we have the suspect in custody, we got him. And then it turned out they hadn't had him in custody.
Well, they had the wrong guy.
Right. But is that responsible? Just because he's the head of that, is he being responsible in putting information that used to be in an investigation that they would vet first before it was put out? But now it seems that rush on all levels to get something out is maybe hurting our understanding of the situation.
Yeah, it's all along measure twice, cut once.
Right. There you go.
So if you get your facts straight, you won't have to come back and make up something else.
Well, I don't know if my facts are right on this, but I do believe it's National Daughter's Day.
Oh, there you go. I love my daughter.
Are there any daughters in the room?
I like to think I'm a good daughter. I don't know. I definitely gave my parents some gray hairs, but...
And being National Daughter's Day, what are you doing for your daughter today?
I'm taking her to soccer practice.
That's good.
That's a good mother.
I'm taking her to soccer practice. I'm going to pick her up from school. I'm going to feed her, and
what are you going to feed her?
I'm going to feed her healthy food.
Well, you should feed her a quesadilla, because today is National Quesadilla Day.
There you go. But Alex Garza put on here, she just said September 25th is National If You See Something, Say Something Awareness Day.
Oh, that's not on my list.
So what else you got on your list?
I also have One Hit Wonder Day.
Do you have a favorite one-hit wonder? I always like celebration. Celebration.
Yeah.
My problem with one-hit wonders are often there's more than one hit to the person. You think it's a one-hit wonder, but it turns out, no, they actually had 2 or 3 hits.
Mine are always in the 90s. I feel like in the 90s we had a lot of one-hit
And the
wonders.
80s, too.
Oh, the 80s, because it was MTV era. So you got one video out there, you got one hit song, and then nobody heard from you again.
Right.
Yeah,
How about those? Talk about hearing from someone again. How about those Jimmy Kimmel ratings?
We're going to wrap this in just a second, but we do have to look at that. The generated 6.26 million total viewers. That is about 3 times what his regular viewing would get. And you have to keep that in consideration along with being preempted in about 23% of the country. So had he been at 100% of the country, it would have probably been 4 times what he usually got.
Probably.
It'll be interesting to see how long that sustains, if it was an instant drop-off or it reminded people he was out there. Also, Celeste, you were talking about the hits on the video. How many
it was
is
like
he at?
25 million views. Last I checked, it was around 25 million.
And Nexstar is now back in negotiations with Disney to, I guess, bring him back. I don't know where Sinclair is going to stand on this.
If the move was to silence Jimmy Kimmel, it didn't work. Anyway, what's coming up, Celeste?
Coming up on Hello Houston, Tony Payan, the director of the Center for the United States and Mexico at Rice University's Baker Institute, is going to join us to break down the TN visa, a key yet often overlooked part of the U.S. labor market. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
887.
I'm Reid Hoffman.
And I'm Aria Finger. And we host Possible.
We want to know what happens if, in the future, everything breaks humanity's way.
This week, we're talking to Yuval Noah Harari, philosopher and historian.
If the AI tycoon himself behaves in an untrustworthy way, there is no way that he can produce a trustworthy AI.
This is Possible.
You can hear it Sunday night at 9 o'clock.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting for the first time in company history Puccini's trio of one-act operas. Il Tridico, featuring one of opera's most famous songs, O mio Babino Caro. Tickets available at hgo.org.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, a night of mystery and intrigue with Father Brown at 7, followed by the Sister Boniface Mysteries at 8 and Death in Paradise at 9. Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider striving to build trust with businesses across the state through dedicated services. More at texasmutual.com/TexansDeliver.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The TN visa is an often overlooked component part of the U.S. labor market. TN stands for Trade NAFTA, created under NAFTA and carried forward by the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. The TN visa allows certain professionals from Canada and Mexico to work in the U.S., particularly in high-demand fields like healthcare, engineering, and tech. But with a major review of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement coming in 2026, the future of this visa program is far from uncertain. Joining us to unpack what's at stake is Tony Payan, director of the Center for the United States and Mexico at Rice University's Baker Institute. Tony, welcome back to Hello Houston.
Celeste, happy to be here.
And if you would like to join the conversation and have a question or comment for Tony, you can give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870. Tony, I think it's very important to understand that the TN visa is a non-immigrant visa, which means it is not a path to citizenship. Can you elaborate on that?
The U.S., I think, has a kind of a veritable alphabet of visas, as you know, the M, the F, the J, the H, the B, and on and on. This particular visa was created by the North American Free Trade Agreement back in 1994, and it is exclusively for Canadians and Mexicans. I think Australia's agreement with the United States on trade also includes a similar visa, but this particular visa is very, very unique. It is a non-immigrant visa. Most visas are non-immigrant visas, really, when you get a B1, B2, when you get an F1, when you get a J1, when you get all kinds of visas, you are explicitly stating that you do not intend to migrate to the United States. You're coming in to study, to work, to visit, and on, but you do not intend to migrate to the United States. The TN visa is one of those. It qualifies as a non-immigrant visa. It's a work visa, temporary work visa to live and work and study in the United States, but you I guess intentionally state that you do not intend to remain in the United States.
From what I saw, Tony, the jobs are mostly STEM jobs. There's a lot of science, technical, engineering, math, and fairly skilled jobs is my point. So these people can come for 3 years, maybe 4. But in truth, are some of these TN visas being extended more than 4 years?
Unlike the H-1B, which has been in the media quite a bit lately because the Trump administration has imposed, I think, $100,000 for that particular visa. The TN visa is a little bit different. It sort of seems to compete with the H-1B, although I think the H-1B is considerably broader in its scope. The TN visa has 63 professions specifically listed in the annex to the agreement that qualify for a TN visa. And you are absolutely right. It includes some health professionals, doctors, nurses. It includes, actuaries, mathematicians. It's a number of professions. It's only 63. And then later, the North American Trade Commission extended that to 64. They added an additional one, and they can do it. They can certainly update that it can be updated by the commission. It's only been done once. The interesting thing about this is that it is professionals, but unlike the H-1B, as I mentioned, this one is extensible as many times as necessary. There's been folks who have been in the United States working with the TN visa for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. It has no cap. Unlike other visas, again, the H-1B is an example, 3 years, extendable another 3 years, and then that's the end of it. That you have to go back. The TN, you can stay as long as the U.S. continues to approve that visa. That's a very unique visa in the sense that it has no cap. It has no limit as to how many times you can renew it, and the only thing is that it's only about those 63 plus one professions.
But Tony, when we're looking at the 63 professions, there's also interior designer, nutritionist, animal breeder, meteorologist.
Well,
meteorologist.
We're scientists, aren't it?
Do you think that when we're looking into 2026 and we're looking at the review of the TN visa, do you think that some of the questions are going to be like, do we really need to be bringing interior designers, nutritionists, animal breeders, and meteorologists from Canada and Mexico?
It's a very good question, but let me tell you a little bit about what counts as a profession. Let's take veterinarians for a minute. I mean, because I think that's an interesting one, or a nutritionist for a minute. It could be that it's not a nutritionist for a human being. It could be that is somebody who actually works with how to feed cattle. What's the diet for cattle to to kind of be able to get to the stage where you can put it in the market. One of the most curious things was a conversation I had with some of the folks in Indiana and some of the folks in South Carolina that talked about the way they brought certain certain vets from Mexico and Canada, for example, and they had to stay there. And those are the guys that, take care of the cattle, make sure that the cows, that are pregnant are doing well, they're being fed the right food, that the calves are right, and then they assist the births. Sometimes, the animals also have difficult births, that they're healthy and things like that. So what a nutritionist is, what a vet is, can be interpreted in many, many different ways. And we know that many, many corporations, companies, businesses, farmers in the United States make, a kind of a more liberal interpretation. So it's not about a nutritionist that you and I may consult in Houston. Right. It could be a nutritionist that works in a place where food is being processed and things like that.
So industry specific is what you're trying to say. Yeah, saying basically. Yeah.
How many people?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many people are here on TN visas? Do you know? And how does that compare to the other type of visas?
Yeah, over time, I think hundreds of thousands of people have obtained that particular visa. I think Canadians used to make use of that visa very, very generously. Sometimes there were as many as 80, 100, 120,000 Canadians working on that visa. Mexicans never really woke up to that visa until the 2000s, even though it had been available for them since 1994. It began to be used very slowly, 1,000, and then 2,000, 3,000. And I think today we may have 12, 13,000 Mexican professionals working on the TN visa. The issue there is that the professions are so restrictive, even though you may say, there's 63 professions available. The reality is that there are many, many other professions, thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs in the United States that may not fit any of those 63 descriptions. And so many of them come in as consultants. And so they the classification of consultant may qualify depending on what you do. If you're an accountant, for example, and you may work with a Mexican company, or you may work with an American company that has operations in Mexico. So you need somebody who has the ability to understand the Mexican accounting system and the U.S. accounting system and the differences between the two. We also know that there are some technicians. There's a particular company that I've actually kind of worked with. It's a Mexican food company that opened a plant in Texas, and they couldn't get the professionals to understand the kinds of pastas and the diet for Latinos and things like that. And so they ended up bringing a lot of the professionals from Mexico who actually understand those particular food processing, and it's working really well. They brought some families. I worked with another company, advised them briefly on what to do. They opened a car part manufacturing plant in Huntsville, Alabama, and they couldn't get the engineers. It's a more rural area. The engineers are not there. They may be in California or Texas, but they're not in Alabama in the numbers that they need them. And so they were able to bring 60 engineers from Mexico to work in the plant in Huntsville, Alabama. So I think it's a really good visa for a lot of businesses that can't find the qualified labor in the United States, or that have very specific needs and understanding certain systems like the accounting system that I just mentioned.
Speaking of accounting, I want to talk some money and numbers here too, and understand the president is proposing that for an H-1B visa, that it could be $100,000 for that type of visa. Could folks within an H-1B shift over to a TN visa, or is there no way to kind of couch it in there to try and, if that $100,000 goes in? And then also, what is the deal with charging for visas? I guess other countries do it. We don't quite do it at that level, but there are fees.
Well, that's a really good question. I think it depends on the direction of the visa, right? If certainly an H-1B is preferable, because the H-1B, unlike the other non-immigrant visas that Celeste just asked about, the H-1B visa is a dual intent visa, which means it's a visa that allows you to not declare whether you're going to migrate to the United States or not. That dual intent visa, if you get an H-1B, then allows you to go to a lawyer and then file for a green card. So the H-1B has a path towards a green card, which is an immigrant visa. So that has a great advantage. The TN doesn't have that path. It's a non-immigrant visa. You can renew it as many times as you want to, but you will always be a non-immigrant visa holder. So the other thing that is important to note is that if you can get an H-1B, it's probably better, because then you can file for the green card. A TN visa doesn't allow you that path. So if you're a Canadian or a Mexican, you should prefer an H-1B. But if you cannot get an H-1B, then you get a TN visa. The problem with the TN visa, although renewable indefinitely, is that it doesn't have a path to permanent migration to the United States. So if I were a Mexican or Canadian citizen, I would prefer an H-1B. But if I just want to come into the United States and work for my company, the company that has operations on both sides of the border, then a TN visa is very, very convenient. And then I go back home when it's done. So I guess it's the direction, right? If I were in a TN, I myself knew people that have TN visas and then converted to an H-1B because it has that privilege to become a U.S. permanent resident. Going from an H-1B to a TN obviously would preclude you from ever applying for the green card. So it just depends on what you want to do.
You know, Tony, with the USMCA's upcoming review and revision next year in 2026, what do you think from your perspective and the data from the Baker Institute we need to be talking about and looking at as it is under scope, essentially?
Well, there's a really good history behind that. The TN visa was implemented in 1994. I think it's worked very well for many companies and businesses in the United States. Many Canadians, hundreds of thousands of Canadians have actually worked with that visa in the United States, and Mexicans, in the tens of thousands, of considerably fewer, but they're beginning to sort of make more extensive use of that particular visa. Everyone thought that in the review and revision or the renegotiation of the then NAFTA agreement into what is now the USMCA, that visa, the TN, was going to go away. That President Trump at that time, in the renegotiations between 2017 and 2020, was going to chop that chapter off the agreement, and the visa was going to go away. But because President Trump was so focused on other items within the agreement, regional content or national content and things like that, that chapter kind of snuck into the USMCA agreement and remained essentially intact. It was grandfathered into the USMCA. But now President Trump, in the second term, intends, I think, we don't know yet, consultations have actually begun, so it tells me that there's likely to be not just a review, but an actual revision of the agreement. Mexico and Canada are obviously hoping that in a renegotiation, the chapter survives. They're not hoping to expand it. I've actually asked many people in Mexico, and they would love to see the number of professions expanded and modernized. Some of those professions are old, 35 years ago. So they want to sort of expand that. But they're saying, look, if the chapter survives, if the TN visa survives, that's good enough. Let's just keep it in place. It did survive in 2020. We don't know if it'll survive in 2026. I think Ottawa and Mexico City will push for that component of the agreement to remain. But with the anti-immigrant sentiments coming out of the Trump administration, I don't know that chapter will survive. That may be the end of the TN visa. Hopefully not, because it's been very good for all three countries. We'll see.
How much does it cost, the TN?
That's a really good question. I don't remember exactly, but all the visa processing fees are going up. It used to cost, like any other visa, $120, $125. The biggest cost, I think, was essentially the lawyers, because you often had to, hire a lawyer to process the paperwork. There's a different treatment, and I think it's really important to know that. Canadians used to get what is essentially a job offer. So once you got a job offer from the employer, once you had that letter of offer, you could just show up at the border. And the CBP agent at the border point would essentially stamp your passport and grant you the TN visa on the spot. And you were ready to come into the United States with a TN visa and go. Mexican citizens had a slightly different treatment. Once they got the job offer from the employer, they had to actually set up an appointment at the consulate, go through an interview with a consular officer, and then get that visa approved at the consulate. So it took a little bit longer. But most visas costed just, $100, $125, $180. It was really very low cost. I don't remember the number exactly. The prices have changed. For a B1, B2 visa, the prices just went up from $100+ to $450, for example. So I am assuming that the TN visa fees have also gone up with this latest revision of the fees. And the H-1B is just an extraordinary thing. $100,000 a year for an H-1B visa is prohibitive for both applicants and employers.
Well, we got to leave it there, but thank you so much.
Tony Payan is the director of the Center for the United States and Mexico at Rice University's Baker Institute. Tony, thank you again for joining us today on Hello Houston.
My pleasure. Till next time.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll continue discussing the top stories of the day. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
After decades of use, hormonal birth control is suddenly under the microscope.
When you go to TikTok, for example, and look up the words birth control right now, you'll come across a stream of videos of women venting against the pill.
How social media and politics are driving these new concerns. That's next time on Think.
You can hear Think tonight at 10 o'clock.
Hi, I'm John Donvan, host of Open to Debate, where we bring you open-minded discussions and debates about the issues affecting our lives. Everything from science and tech to politics, culture, and foreign policy. In our divided nation, we feel it's more important than ever for people to be open-minded, open to disagreement, and open to listening to the other side. Join me in being open to debate.
You can listen this Sunday night at 10 o'clock.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Growing Up Jewish, a contemporary art exhibit celebrating North America's vibrant Jewish community. Details at hmh.org.
Support comes from Miller Outdoor Theater, presenting Roco's 21st season, opening with 2 premiere commissions and more, celebrating the world and its creatures. This Friday, open to the public. MillerOutdoorTheater.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
All right, if you are watching us on YouTube, you're going to see the most adorable kitty cat coming up. The Galveston Island Humane Society is a humane shelter providing care for lost or homeless pets, reuniting pets with families, promoting adoptions of pets, needing homes. We're going to find out more in just a moment. Their biggest fundraiser is this Saturday night, and I'm honored to once again MC that gala. Woo-hoo. I know, the titles always have a fun pun name, and this year it's a salute to Paulie-wood.
That's perfect for you.
Which means I get to dress up the way Ernie Manous dresses every day. So I get sunglasses on. I'm going to look like a star. All right, to tell us more about the mission of the shelter, as Kristen Thompson here. She's heading up the Galveston Island Humane Society. Hi, Kristen. Who's that you got with you?
This is Catrick Swayze. Yes, you heard that correctly. Catrick Swayze. He is unable to attend the actual event, so he wanted to show his support today and make sure he came and said hello. He is up for adoption any other day except for the gala. So he is here supporting the mission. He also wanted to let you know we have raffle tickets still available. He will chauffeur the golf cart if you win it.
Well, she's adorable, Kristen. So talk to me about the policy of open admission at the Galveston Island Humane Society. What exactly does that mean?
That means that we are required to take in every animal. It does not matter if it comes through the doors via the owner, a Good Samaritan who's found the animal, or perhaps one of our city marshals, which is our animal services unit.
So
we take in everything from cats, dogs, to we've got perhaps some migratory birds that come through. We're going to let Catrick do what he wants right now.
Okay. So I know some shelters, I do a lot with Cap and Paws, and I know some shelters don't allow certain breeds of dogs. They just won't take them. Do you take all breeds of dogs?
Yes, sir. They do. The only requirement that we have is the animal has to reside within our island, the Galveston Island. Because we are such a small shelter, we do have to make sure we accommodate our island.
Yeah. Even if you're full, you take in animals. Well, I guess
Yes,
they wander your
absolutely.
office.
We just make it happen. We've got a fabulous staff, fabulous volunteers. We actually have a volunteer who just came and picked up a couple dogs that he's transporting to San Antonio right now.
Let me know what is the situation of strays on the island? How is it looking? How are the numbers?
It's always something that we strive to work on. So the spay neuter is something that is ever present. We're always trying to get folks to spay and neuter their animals. We will assist them in any way, shape, or form that we can. This little one is getting neutered shortly next week. So it is something that as a community we have to work on. But as a shelter, especially, we do make sure that we, can get out into the community, inform people of how we can help them and how they can help themselves.
Kristen, what is the process to adopt a pet at the Galveston Island Humane Society?
It's relatively easy. Fill out a job application online. Work here for about 2 minutes. And no, I'm just teasing. So you do have to fill out an application online and just let us know what you're interested in, what your household is like, and then we'll try and help you either facilitate a visit with the animal you're specifically interested in, or we'll assist you in pointing you in a good direction.
So
perhaps Catrick Swayze would be of interest.
Tell us about the gala that I get Catrick Swayze.
Absolutely.
That's so funny. Yeah, tell us about the gala that I'm emceeing.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're going to be there hosting that for us. Thank you so much. That is this weekend. That is our largest fundraiser for the year. And it's just an event that everyone loves. I am going to be partaking in this for the very first time. Normally I'm working and don't get to actually go. So I'm very thrilled that I get to partake in it. It is filled with every donor that you could possibly imagine, every sponsor, our board members. We have volunteers that join us. And we also have our Elite Pet Owner of the Year that we are going to announce. And then just lots of fun little games. And I have some of our prizes behind me. You can do silent auction. You can get a raffle ticket. There's obviously an exquisite dinner because we will be at the San Luis.
Kristen,
Nice.
A quick question for you. When people are thinking about adopting pets, oftentimes they may not be the right candidates, and they can they can understand that in their own world if they really think about what it means to be a pet owner. What would you recommend to people to consider before they make the next step to adopting?
Well, there's always one thing that I consider when I think about my history of going through and looking for an animal. I honestly would encourage you to become a volunteer first. I know that may be difficult for some folks, but it will help you get to know each of the animals, and you can specifically start walking that animal or spending time with certain animals and decide for yourself what a more appropriate animal is. Somebody might think they want a puppy, and at the end of the day, a 13-hour workday just doesn't accommodate something like that, and they might need an older, more mature dog, or perhaps cat. Sometimes we've got bunnies. We just had a bunch of bunnies.
Nice. Well, Kristen, keep up the good work. I know you're new in that position, and it's a challenge. So thank you for taking it on, and I'll see you Saturday night.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having us on.
Kristen Thompson is the executive director of the Galveston Island Humane Society, and Catrick Swayze is up for adoption. Kristen, Catrick, both of you, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Coming up, we'll continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston. See you at noon.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Manoush Zamarodi, and our world is changing so fast. On the TED Radio Hour, we invite innovators, researchers, and activists to unpack those changes with us.
Just about all companies are becoming technology companies or technology-enabled companies.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour from NPR every week for conversations that will deepen your understanding of our changing world.
The TED Radio Hour, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from Roco, opening its season with Feels Like Home. Deliana La Rova leads 4 premieres, and Emily Myers 4 Symphony. September 26th at Miller Outdoor Theater and 27th at St. John the Divine. Roco.org.
Look for lots of sunshine today. We're going to get up to about 88 for the high. Currently 86. This is your NPR station, KUHF. Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into today's top stories, including plans to reopen Camp Mystic in 2026, a year after 25 campers and 2 counselors lost their lives in the July 4th floods. I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And I'm Ernie Manous. We'll also talk with New York Times bestselling author and former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson about her upcoming Houston event.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll share our current obsessions, our rundown of things that are currently taking over all our free time, and we want yours.
That's right. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You know, you can also watch us on our YouTube channel by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's hosting Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan at the White House this afternoon. The White House is considering lifting the U.S. freeze on sales of F-35 jets to Turkey. The U.S. has been concerned data on the advanced fighter jets could end up in Russian hands through an air defense system that Moscow sold to Ankara. Trump addressed Turkey's role as a member of NATO in helping the alliance pressure Russia to end its war with Ukraine.
I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia. If he did that, that would be probably the best thing. He knows Putin like I know Putin.
FBI Director Kash Patel posted on X, investigators have collected devices and other evidence from the site of yesterday's shooting at a Dallas ICE facility. The gunman shot 3 detainees, killing 1 before apparently taking his own life. The man who built 2 criminal cases against President Trump has broken his silence. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports former special counsel Jack Smith is warning about attacks on the rule of law.
In remarks at George Mason University, former prosecutor Jack Smith says he's sad and angry about what's happening at the Justice Department. Smith says career public servants are being fired and vilified for doing their jobs. Smith himself left DOJ earlier this year, shortly before Trump's inauguration. administration. The Justice Department dropped criminal cases against Trump after he won the 2024 election. Now Smith says new leaders at the department seem to be following orders to go after Trump's political opponents and give breaks to the president's friends. He says the rule of law is under attack unlike any other period in his lifetime, and he says he's standing by people inside DOJ who continue to do the right thing. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
Trump administration officials have recently linked Tylenol use to autism. Researchers say there's no evidence that taking Tylenol while pregnant causes autism in children. And separately, administration officials have relaxed restrictions on a drug called leucovorin. NPR's Yuki Noguchi has more on that.
Since the Trump administration said it would greenlight broader use of leucovorin, the Autism Science Foundation has fielded a lot of calls from patients and their families. Here's the group's chief scientific officer, Alicia Halliday.
We've also seen a lot of activity on social media where families are very, very excited that it's going to be easier for them to get.
Halliday is also the mother of an autistic daughter. She says there's still very little research on leucovorin, its safety or impact on autism. She's concerned the administration is offering false hope to many families. Yuki Noguchi, NPR News.
U.S. stocks trading lower this hour with the Dow down 152 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Deliberations are currently underway in the sentencing of Tony Earls Jr. He's the man who was convicted of manslaughter on Tuesday for the shooting death of 9-year-old Arlene Alvarez 3 years ago. The charge carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. We'll have sentencing details for you when we know them here on News 88.7. Harris County has approved a new budget at $2.8 billion. The county also avoids a $200 million deficit with creative cuts to unfilled positions. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez says pay raises will allow his department to compete for talented officers to join Harris County sheriffs.
My sincere gratitude to Commissioners Garcia, Ramsey, and Briones, who made the tough but very necessary decision to make the largest single-year investment in Harris County law enforcement.
Commissioner Adrian Garcia told broadcasters core services will not be cut. Judge Lena Hidalgo had expressed concerns about potential cuts to flood control efforts to make up for the deficit. Striking hotel workers in downtown Houston could soon be joined on the picket line by workers from the nearby convention center. About 100 food and beverage workers at the George R. Brown Convention Center announced Wednesday that they will take a vote on whether to strike. It's unclear when that vote will happen. Their contract with the Levy Food Services Company expires at the end of the month. Bartender Chelsea Wyatt says they want a $23 hourly wage, an increase from the current base of $16 an hour.
We are the backbone of the hospitality industry. You know, we are oftentimes, we're overlooked, we're underpaid, and we are here to say that we demand fair wages, we demand fair schedules, and most importantly, we deserve respect. Amen.
The city's local government corporation, Houston First, owns both facilities. Levy says it is optimistic that we'll reach a fair agreement soon, end quote. Houston First says it hopes the union will, quote, negotiate in good faith with Levy to reach a mutually beneficial agreement so a strike is unnecessary, end quote. I'm Alexandra Hart.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston. Did you get the date today?
I haven't. It is September 25th, 2025. And
good. Now I know what to write on my checks.
9/25/25. When was the last time you wrote a check?
There was a great Saturday Night Live skit where they did about writing a check. And it's so funny. My friend Jeff loves that because I want to write checks.
Well, I remember being in like 3rd or 4th grade and learning how to fill out a check.
Oh, sure.
How to write, 100.
Was it a history class for you?
My mother wrote checks till the day she died, and that was in 2021. She didn't have an ATM card. She wasn't on a computer, thank God. And so she would write checks for $1.10, at Target. And then she was from Arkansas, and she'd be here and she'd say, well, my son, he's the weatherman. This check is good. And they take it.
Okay, I'm a bargain hunter. So I
can't tell.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to say why you say that. So I bought a big stack of checks when I bought checks because they were at such a good deal the last time I bought checks, which was probably in 1996 or 7. They all have my very first address here in Houston. And I still, if I have to write a check, still use them. And I'm like, oh, my Lord.
Do you remember when they used to have like the specialty ones with like a Mickey Mouse on the background?
Oh, yeah, you got to pick the check.
I remember I used to ask
my
dad.
Check holder. Which way do you want it? Do you want to do it in triplicate?
I would ask my dad. I said, Dad, why don't we get the cool checks? And he'd be like, well, those cost extra.
Oh, your dad.
My dad, bless Harmon's heart, he is a CPA, and so he was always on it.
It's so funny to think about financial securities today and how many ways we have to verify and, with charge cards and chips and your fingerprint and face identification. And back then, all you had to do was write your name on a piece of paper and hand it to someone, and that was, we'll take your money.
Yeah, as good as gold.
Life was simpler.
Much simpler.
Hey, the new model runs are in, and they still have a hurricane foreman.
Model runs are for the rest of us.
Oh, National Weather Service puts out model. The American model, the European model, the
you.
German
I'm a European
model, the Japanese model, the Ernie model. There's all kinds of models out there. But my point is that still could see a storm form in the Atlantic, which right now could really affect South Carolina. So it would be the ice storm, which would be Imelda. So we'll see. It's a little early to tell because it still isn't there. And until it forms, it's a 90% chance of it forming, according to the National Hurricane Center. But until it forms, you don't really know where it's going to go because you don't have a center to put into the computers to give you a model.
Well, do we have any residual of that coming our way at all? So clear.
No. In fact, this front is going to continue to push that way. And it may pick this system up and keep it offshore. But it depends on when it forms. It's got to form pretty soon.
I have to say, I officially have my cinnamon broom out.
It must be fall.
Must be fall.
Quick question for you, Frank. We all know you retired from being a weatherman.
Yeah.
And then after a few months, you came and joined us. In those few months in the middle there, were you checking the radar every day and still looking at it? Still, it was you.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's what all of my tabs on my computer do. I don't have any other favorites saved. They're all weather favorites. So, yeah, it was easy to go through and keep up with things.
Well, weather is important, as we learned over the summer, that bad weather can be catastrophic, and we know that better than a lot of areas.
Yes. Camp Mystic, the Christian girls' camp where 25 young campers and 2 counselors died during the July 4th flooding, will reopen one of its campsites in 2026. And this is according to an email shared with families. Camp Mystic officials said in the email sent Monday that they would follow all new laws and regulations as it would welcome campers back at its Cypress Lake site and as they look to rebuild the Guadalupe River site. The Cypress Lake site is less than a mile south and uphill from the Guadalupe River site. They also assured parents that campers would never return to cabins that were flooded in July and said plans are in the works to build a memorial for the Heavens 27 campers and counselors who died during the flooding. Quote, "We are not only rebuilding cabins and trails, but also a place where laughter, friendship, and spiritual growth will continue to flourish," the email read. Also, the email said, "As we work to finalize plans, we will do so in a way that is mindful of those we have lost." Matthew Childress, father of Chloe Childress, one of the 2 counselors who died at Camp Mystic, said in a text to the Texas Tribune that the families of deceased campers and counselors were not consulted about did not approve the proposed memorial. Childress said that attention should be centered on recovering 8-year-old Sile Stewart, who is the only child still missing after the flood. What are your thoughts on the reopening of Camp Mystic? Now is the time to give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
This is
tough.
A tough one. Yeah. I mean, that when things of this nature happen, it's such a tragedy. But in a way, and you can't just close it and forget about it, because you do want to honor the people that lost their lives. And you want to do it in the most thoughtful way you can. And that's probably, I mean, you never want to put words in people's mouths,
No.
but wouldn't the counselors and the girls, wouldn't they want it to go on?
I'm not sure. I know we say it's tough, but another part of me says, no, this isn't tough. It's very obvious. This should not be reopening. If it was my daughter, if this is a place of extreme grief and tragedy and horrific things that happened, to me, the whole place should, find a different way to provide some of that space of laughter and fun. But a horrendous thing happened there.
Yeah, did.
I mean, in my initial first hearing of this, I thought they were reopening the same site that had gotten flooded.
No,
this is the site that's a little further up, and so there is a bit of distance there. But what I find more concerning in this whole story is how families found out about the idea, that it wasn't that they met with them, talked about them, talked about the memorial. I don't know if they had conversations about reopening the camp at all, but I don't believe they did. And I think in that way, you could handle it better, have feedback. Maybe the families would have said, this was such a part of our lives and we celebrated Camp Mystic. We want to see it go on, but in a different location up higher, maybe.
Or maybe the reason they did not include the families of the kids because they didn't want to hear that the families would say, absolutely not. This is appalling. There's still a little girl that is missing.
Yeah.
These families are in the midst of grief, and to me, too soon. I think that and I understand that there are the Camp Mystic community is tight, and there's a whole culture around summer camp, and that culture runs deep in our state. And I understand that it really is a beautiful place for in so many people's lives. But what occurred on July 4th and the way it all happened, I think that it's too soon to even be having these conversations. Give it 5 years. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a number there to where parents are at some place where they can even think about that. But right now there is still a child missing, and I think it's insensitive for this camp to be even thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, if you have a thought you'd like to share with us about that.
Yes, 713-440-8870.
In the meantime, the city of Houston plans to open a, quote, Superhub for homeless people as part of Mayor John Whitmire's initiative to address street homelessness in the city. Details are sparse, including the number of beds, exact location, the total cost, the timeline. Housing Department Director Mike Nichols told Houston Public Media that the city saw, quote, an opportunity to buy a facility for, we think, a very good price, unquote. And the department intends to present the proposal to City Council sometime next month. It's intended to function as a triage site where homeless people are referred to services like health care, psychiatric support, substance abuse programs, or pathways to permanent housing. If it moves forward as planned, the Superhub will be the first of 4 to 5 similar facilities across the city. Sounds like a good idea. What are your thoughts on homeless superhubs in Houston? Call 713-440-8870. Let us know what you think.
Of course, I'm always looking back at what people say. I'm kind of interested in knowing more about the quote you read. An opportunity to buy a facility for, we think, a very good price.
We think of it.
I just thought that was weird wording. My initial bigger response to it is we do have some really well thought out homeless facilities in the city that are run by organizations, Shelter for the Homeless, that have a facility I know about, not too far from here on campus, in which they have housing, but they also have all these, it's a triage idea of a concept where they have job counseling and mental health counseling and nutrition and all of that. my curiosity is why the city isn't just partnering up with these organizations to help strengthen them instead of the city, in effect, getting into the business of housing.
That's a good point. I don't know why they were doing that. I think maybe the mayor wants to leave behind his legacy of helping curb the homeless problem. I mean,
Mayor John Whitmire wants this to be his initiative.
Yeah. And
but
he wants to fulfill
I'm sure if the city got behind, and the city, it's already part of this organization, and why it's escaping my name right now. But I think that they would probably gladly name a shelter after the mayor if it was for that recognition. But I think that there's more. The city needs to be more involved in I'm going to stop my own thought to say, people who are experts in an area know the area they're experts in. And so why not partner with people who have done all of it? And maybe that's part of their plan. Maybe they haven't come fully out and it's going to turn out these city hubs are the next step in how we work with our already active homeless.
Well, that's part of the details that we don't have.
Right.
We don't know what it's going to cost. We don't know when it's going to be built, exactly where, how many people it can help.
I was going to say, so Frank, we have a question. I wonder what part of town this facility would be in. So we don't know that.
And if it's 105, then it's going to be all over town. Because I mean, wherever there are homeless people,
I
think that's all over.
It's great that we're having this conversation about, looking at affordability and for housing and looking at helping our, Houstonians or people that are on the streets to get them the services that they need. So, in one way, it's like I applaud the mayor. Great job. But I would like to see the fine print.
Well, it's obvious we have a problem with the unhoused in our city.
Yeah.
And you just can't keep moving them to other places. They took away the Greyhound bus station downtown thinking would disperse them. But it moved them just to a different area. It doesn't solve the problem to pull away where they're living. And I think we need to look at it on a deeper level. And also having a shelter, there are shelters around the city. And a lot of those that are unhoused do not choose to go and live there. There's problems with violence in there, they say. There's problems with security in there. So there are issues already with this concept. And so building another housing facility, if there's mental illness and security issues and you can't bring your dog or your pet with you in, which a lot of homeless have acquired animals and they don't want to go to these shelters. So there are bigger questions than just, okay, here's more space for them. They may not want that.
Well, Alvin is on the line. We haven't heard from Alvin in a while. He's from the 3rd Ward. Alvin, welcome to Hello Houston. What is on your mind?
All right. How you guys doing?
Good.
Okay. So Ernie actually pretty much laid it out. What we know is that underserved people concentrated in some large complex is probably going to give them less accessibility to the general public for which they can integrate more seamlessly with. You have shelters throughout the city. Those should actually be supported, and we should be trying to figure out how to enhance them to make people want to go there versus otherwise. Otherwise, literally what we're talking about is a homeless city. He's calling it a hub, but that's essentially what it would be, a homeless city. And I don't see anything good that's going to come out of that. Mm-hmm. That's my comment.
Thank you, Alvin, for that.
We also did get a comment from the Dark One who says on YouTube, wait for the, quote, not in my backyard, unquote, resistance to start.
Well, when they moved the bus station, there was a lot of concern where they moved it to. And that building sits there empty still. They're tearing it down in bits and pieces now, the downtown bus terminal. But those folks, I mean, did it clean up the situation with people being around there? It did in that immediate area, but they just moved to other spots. There, when I walk to the theater right there along Eleanor Tinsley Park now at night, it is like a city of people. They line the sidewalks on both sides, and they have little mats out there. And it's alarming that in a city of this size, with as much money we have, and how philanthropic we are as a people, especially in Houston, that we don't have a better way to deal with this situation. But we may be looking at it wrong. So
yeah, Nicole says it would need to be central enough to be accessible for people, but I know some parts of town would be against having this in their neighborhood.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And again, 713-440-8870. If you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text. You can also email us, talk@hellohouston.org.
Speaking of text, we did get a Camp Mystic text saying that Mystic is still a business, and it's quite naive for anyone to think that the camp would close forever. Well, that's not going to close forever. So that they're going to keep it going.
Yes.
So there you go. All right, if you want to comment on the Camp Mystic opening or the Superhubs for homeless, give us a ring, 713-440-8870.
I will say on the unhoused situation, too, that one thing I like about what the city is saying is all too often we think putting them in a shelter, not a shelter per se, but putting them in a place to live is going to fix the problem, where that is a symptom of other problems.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully the triage idea is what.
So I'm
and the
very
triage
happy about
idea
that.
is kind of looking at, like you were mentioning, a different approach or looking at it from a different perspective, and that is taking a holistic approach. But I also know we had the Coalition for the Homeless on, and that's what they do. She said that they will meet them where they're at and take them to a doctor's appointment and provide them resources. So, it's one of those things where we have to continue to look at this because it is an issue within our city.
But there's also the problem, too, of the drug abuse that comes into this. And the argument that goes back and forth is they have to be off drugs to come into the shelter. But if you get into the shelter, then you can get them off drugs. And it's that what comes first, because you don't want to facilitate a problem like that or bring that into a community of other people. But on the other hand, you can't just leave them out on the street.
No.
Right.
We have Gary on the line. He's calling us with his comment on this homeless situation. Gary, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello. I would like you guys to pursue and find an expert to ask this question. We have the homeless situation in Houston, yes, but I've heard about thousands and maybe millions of homeless in L.A., San Francisco, New York, Washington, Philadelphia. Is anybody addressing the cultural and economic issues in the richest country in the world to find out why this country has, so many billionaires here and there, yet people are sleeping on the street from coast to coast? There's something terribly wrong here. It's not just drugs.
It's very true. And
thank you, Gary.
We are not unique in this situation. I think a lot of all major cities are grappling with this problem.
And I would almost go as far to say, I used to live in California and in the northern part of the Bay, and we would go to Oakland and it seemed there were huge campsites. And so I would almost say that given the fact that Houston is the fourth largest city in the nation, we have somewhat of a better grasp of it compared to some other comparative cities.
Well, we have Joseph on the line from Tomball. Joseph, what is your thought about this?
In the fourth largest city in the nation, we have somewhat. Hello?
Hey, Joseph, can you speak? We can hear you.
Yes. It's a huge problem here in Houston. I drive around, I drive a truck, and there is something similar about these homeless people, God bless their soul, that they all are collecting this shopping cart from Walmart, and I see them everywhere. So that illness is connected. I see them in Sugarland, Woodland, Conroe, you name it.
Yep.
So I think put them in that house that they want to buy for them is not going to be enough. These people need serious medical attention because there is something going on that we don't know about them.
Okay.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
There's the economic part of it. We've talked about this on the show before. So many people in our community alone are a single paycheck away from finding themselves unable to meet their bills and their financial needs. And when the economy gets more difficult, what happens then? Do we see an increase? A few years back, the Coalition for the Homeless was touting the getting to zero and that they were close to being able to say we have no more unhoused in Houston. It doesn't solve the problem, but it was getting them into a safer facility. But we're not there now.
Yeah, and to Gary's point, also there's that cultural part of it. But again, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston, calling and texting in your comments and questions. But coming up on Hello Houston, Ernie talks with New York Times bestselling author and former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson. This is News 88.7.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
On the next Science Friday, the beautiful, fragile world of corals and how researchers are working to rebuild threatened reefs.
They are these incredibly charismatic, complex organisms, but in a really unassuming and non-obvious way. Most people actually don't even understand that they are animals.
That's on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
You can hear that tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock.
There was this one mystery I wanted to solve. It was my father. I'd never met him. I didn't know where he was. I didn't really know what had happened to him. But I was always curious, especially because nobody wanted to talk about him.
Join us for more true stories told live. Next time, Family Secrets. That's the Moth Radio Hour from PRX.
You can hear The Moth coming up this Saturday. It's on at noon.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, a night of mystery and intrigue with Father Brown at 7, followed by the Sister Boniface Mysteries at 8 and Death in Paradise at 9. Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Growing Up Jewish. Through contemporary art and storytelling, artist Jacqueline Kotvala explores her Jewish identity. Details at hmh.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Houston-born author, speaker, and past presidential candidate Marianne Williamson returns home tomorrow night for an evening with Marianne Williamson, Love in Action, at Unity of Houston. During the evening, Marianne will share her thoughts on how love can move beyond the personal to become a powerful force of change. With her return to Houston, we thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to chat with Marianne about her Houston upbringing, the importance of education, the value of travel, her thoughts and feelings on the state of our nation today, and if she's considering another go at the White House. Here now in an excerpt from an upcoming episode of my series Interviews with Ernie Manous is Marianne Williamson. When you look at what's going on in the world today, and we're seeing, and this is just from my point of view, you're seeing so much sadness and I'm trying to think of the right word, where they feel there is no hope. Hopelessness, I guess, is the best word. And that it's sometimes we're noticing it manifesting in violent reactions and reaching out. And we've seen shootings and these things like that that are going on. And more often than not, they're by younger people who are very disillusioned or hopeless or scared. What's going on with this generation? And I know in every generation we all think we had it so bad and we overcame it, but there seems something going on now which seems so unsettling.
Well, as I said before, in my generation, when we were young, we did have more hope, and hope was more realistic. We had more of an opportunity to get in the game. And for too many young people in America today, they do not have a realistic opportunity to get in the game. We have millions of American children who go to schools where they don't even have the resources to teach a child to read. And if the child can't learn to read by the age of 10, the chances of high school graduation are drastically reduced and the chances of incarceration are drastically increased. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the attraction to Donald Trump initially was, as a friend of mine said, people will go for false hope before they'll go for no hope. And we have to take responsibility for that. We have to take responsibility for, and that this is not to say that people are not accountable for their actions. Please don't get me wrong. But we need to, I believe, all of us think very, very deeply about the soullessness that's set into the core of how we have functioned both politically and socially and economically. Now, does that mean that there's some broad brush that can fix all that? No. It's at this point a multi-systems, full systems breakdown, and it will take a full systems response. It needs to be an integrative response, however. We are we're well into the 21st century, but our politics is still based on 20th century thought forms. And the 20th century thinking politically is very concentrated on symptoms and refuses to look at causal issues. And if you look at causal issues, you first of all, you think in terms of how are people going to feel about this? What's going to be the psychology of this? You know, there was a lot of talk for years. It's very interesting. People would talk for a lot of years about the Middle East. And well, there are too many young men who don't have job opportunities. Really? Really? You think that's the only place in the world where that's a problem? Hint, hint. So I think the fact that there was no listening, and I know from personal experience, not only no listening, there was derision towards anyone who said, you know, we have to think about this in broader terms. We're now living in the 21st century, particularly to kids. Remember, young people today, many of the young people that you meet today weren't even born in the 20th century. They're not 20th century thinkers. They have a far more whole person, holistic perspective on the world. They'll talk to you about a psychological issue and a political issue in the same conversation, and to them, as to me, it's all part of the same stuff, you know? And so we have to address it both in our personal behavior and also in terms of such things as traditional political activism. It's both and. Nothing short of an entirely integrative approach to what is happening now will get us out of this mess and lead us to the other side.
To move this a little along, I'm curious, you talk about the success of your career and the exposure you had to the people you did. What made you shift from, if you did in fact, from the idea of advising and helping people understand to saying, I want to get into the game of politics?
Well, you can take people who have a background in spirituality and personal growth. And I've been saying to people in the higher consciousness community for decades, we are the last people who should be sitting out the great social, economic, and political questions of our day. Because if you know what changes one heart, you're the one who knows what would change the world. I could take people who were with a background in any of those higher consciousness issues, personal growth. Give me a weekend, and I can explain the American political system in a way that, you know, anybody could say at the end of the weekend, got it. Because it's not as complicated as I would have you believe. On the other hand, I noticed counseling political figures that they had been in too many, not all obviously, and I haven't talked to all of them, but in too many cases, I met people with good hearts, good intentions, but so within the bubble of old think that they just couldn't get there to understand the deeper dynamics. I mean, it would take so long. They thought it was just a messaging issue. They hadn't been outside the enclaves of, you know, the privileged people in America to have a sense of what was going on in this country. And at a certain point, I felt like, you know what, just get out of that chair and let me sit there. Just move over and let me sit there. We got to go faster, and I think I could do a better job. Well,
yeah. With all of that being said, though, how's the next presidential race looking to you? Interested?
Well, I'm more concerned right now, I think most of us are, in what's going to happen in 2026. We are living in a completely different period. This is a completely different timeline. I agree with those who argue that, you know, the way we're going now, we shouldn't even assume it's a guarantee that we will have a presidential election in 2028. We have a long time between now and then, unfortunately, in terms of political timeline. So I do believe that there are some people showing up very powerfully. And I would never have said this a few years ago, but right now I really like the way Gavin Newsom is showing up, because I like the fact that he's in there every single day. I like Governor Pritzker. I like the way he's showing up. I like Chris Murphy from Connecticut. Obviously, those are all Democrats. However, to me, the movement that is so important now in order to resist what is a neo-fascist assault on our democracy is not left versus right. There are many people. Look what happened the other day with the Jimmy Kimmel issue. Senator Cruz was one of your loudest voices saying, hell no, Brendan Carr, get back in your lane. Government's not going to tell ABC not to let that guy on. So it's really important not to see this as left-right. This is pro-democracy versus those who, for their own purposes, would like to basically demolish our democracy in order to impose a corporate dictatorship. So we certainly need someone in 28 who will be able to speak to the deeper truths of what's going on. But once again, right now, we have to be where we are in this moment. I don't think the midterms have ever been as important as they are in 2026.
Are you surprised from everything you've seen and even being involved in the system in the way you have, where we currently are with our assault on free speech, science, even the truth itself and what that means?
I ran for president twice saying it's going to happen. I mentioned before, people laughed at me when I talked about the dark psychic force of the collectivized hatred that he was inspiring in this country. You can laugh at the language because I was a little nervous. Maybe it was psychic force. If I had said psychological force, maybe it would have been more acceptable to the elite. Hello. So, I mentioned before, FDR saying we will not have to worry about a fascist takeover as long as democracy delivers on its promises. To me, if you look at that, if you flip that, that means that if democracy does not deliver on its promises, then expect a serious effort at fascist takeover. So am I surprised? No. Shocked? Yes. Horrified? Yes. For me, as well as for others, it's beyond my worst nightmares, but my nightmares were already happening or I would never have run.
Let me flip this again back to Love in Action. You're going to be here on the 26th on Friday. What can people expect to hear from you?
Well, I'm speaking at the Unity Church, and I feel very strongly about the role of spirituality in collective change. Even if you look at the great social justice movements in the history of the United States, among white Americans, obviously abolition was a segregated movement, but among white Americans, the abolitionist movement emerged from the early evangelical churches in New Hampshire. Among the women who were the leaders of the suffragist movement, this emerged from their Quakerism. And let's not forget that Dr. King was a Baptist preacher. He said it was time to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of human civilization. There is a reason why so much of the drive towards a more just society, a more merciful society, a more democratic society. I mean, let's not forget, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. The Declaration of Independence was not just positing a profound movement forward politically for the human race, but also spiritually. The very idea, we were kids, we learned about the divine right of kings. For centuries, they said God gave power to the king. We were saying, no, God gave the power to everybody. Everybody granted by their creator with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is not something to ignore. Not only, and like I said, the greatest movements forward had been based on people who not only would not ignore those things, but stood on those things and had faith in those things and were willing to resist any forces that would do otherwise. Now, what we have now, as you in Texas are well aware, we have a Christian nationalist movement that is using the cover of Christianity to hide what is a worldview decidedly at odds with the teachings of Christ. That's why there's so much national attention on Texas and on the work of progressive Christians such as James Tallarico. Mm-hmm. Now, I also believe that the inner life is more powerful than many people believe. The inner life, religion, spirituality, meditation, deep reflection, we are now learning, science is now proving, this is not just about quote unquote making you feel better. This is not just about learning how to cope. This is not some low level, unsophisticated pursuit. We are now learning about the laws of consciousness, and we are learning about, first of all, what is happening politically in this country now is an assault on our nervous system. We have to see ourselves right now as political and spiritual athletes. That's why in order to endure this time, much less transform it, you have to take care of yourself. You have to regulate yourself emotionally, psychologically, intellectually. in order to be able to, as I said, endure. Now, there's a quote that someone showed me that I believe speaks to this so profoundly. It's by a Nobel laureate called Ilya Prigogine, I think it would be. Listen to this. When a complex system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the system to a higher order. That's huge. We're living at a time of chaos, and the temptation is to constantly be playing whack-a-mole because they're attacking us on every possible level. Well, there's a level on which time spent every day in practice, this is prayer, this is meditation, this is any spiritual practice, any congregation. It could be your church, it could be your synagogue, it could be your mosque, any place where people come together to share a heartbeat, to share devotion, to share love, to work together on the purification of the heart, to remove from our hearts the fear, the negativity, the unforgiveness, the hatred, which blocks the impulse and the flow of God's love in the world. This is an important part of what will bring down the walls that are seeking to obstruct our capacity to live as free people. So to me, I always say in my talks, you pray in the morning, you kick ass in the afternoon. I think if you look at some of the people in America's history who have done the most to resist powers of oppression and injustice, you will find some deep dedications to the power of the heart and the truths of the heart and the values of the heart. And they are as relevant now as they've ever been, and necessary, and I think required in order for us to get through this chapter.
Marianne Williamson, a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys in Houston.
Ernie in conversation with author, speaker, and political activist Marianne Williamson. The full interview will be available on our Houston Public Media YouTube channel later next week. Just look for Interviews with Ernie Manoose, Marianne Williamson. Marianne's presentation, Love in Action, will take place in Houston tomorrow night, September 26th at Unity of Houston. Coming up, we'll discuss our current obsessions. Get those ready. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues. With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
What happens when a Swede and a Norwegian walk into a bar?
We're a small country, and we just want to be recognized.
Pick your favorite among the hundreds of castles in the Czech Republic.
We have a lot of medieval castles with Gothic architecture.
And get around London riding the tube.
You can't be a Londoner without loving the tube.
On the next Travel with Rick Steves.
You can hear that Saturday morning at 6 o'clock.
I'm Jesse Thorne. You want some real, insightful conversations about where art comes from? Well, Bullseye has you covered, as long as you don't mind a little bit of ridiculousness.
Y'all was really judging me, though.
They sniffed it out. They sniffed out that I was weird.
I was like, I don't know where I'm going to sit, just like in the movies.
Listen, learn, laugh. Bullseye from Maximum Fun and NPR.
Bullseye, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from Roco, opening its season with Feels Like Home. Delyana La Rova leads 4 premieres, and Emily Myers 4 Symphony. September 26th at Miller Outdoor Theater and 27th at St. John the Divine. Roco.org. Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting trumpeter Chris Botti in concert for an afternoon of music from jazz to pop to classical. Sunday, September 28th at 3 p.m. More at thegrand.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And now it's time to dive into our current obsessions. This is a rundown of things that are currently taking over all of our free time. A current obsession is a TV show you run home to continue. It's the song that's on repeat, the audiobook that makes you drive that extra mile. And one of the top trending items now on X is the new trailer for the upcoming third installment in the Avatar franchise, Avatar Fire and Ash. And before we get into our interest in our current obsessions, you are more than welcome to share your current obsessions with us by calling or texting 713-440-8870.
Would you like me to share?
Yes, go right ahead.
You talk about that Avatar preview. I'm kind of taken with the Wicked one that just came out. They have the final trailer for Wicked 2, which isn't what it's called, Wicked for Good. I just don't think they did a good job with that promo.
The promo for Wicked?
Yeah. I don't think it makes you want to go see the movie. I know the movie is going to be good, and I know where the story's going. I've seen the musical. I know what happens next, and it's a really good. But I just think that they cut a lot together to make it look but didn't tell you anything.
I don't think the Wicked franchise
That's what I think.
I don't think the Wicked franchise needs a huge promo.
Well,
I think the franchise stands on its own. That to me, the promo is kind of like Frank, what's your current obsession?
Well, we moved.
Yes.
And we had 30 garage sales and we still didn't get rid of everything.
I remember.
We still didn't get rid of everything. I was putting stuff in the driveway saying, just take it.
Take it.
But not enough people took it. So anyway, we have some people that came over today to help us organize the kitchen and the pantry and the bathroom drawers. And, when you're in a high rise, space can be a real commodity. So you want
Even when you're in a townhouse.
Well, yeah. And when you have a bunch of stuff, I'm like, how many omelet pans can a person need, right?
Depends how many omelets you're making.
If you're making omelets for 40, then you need probably 3 omelet pans. Anyway, so our obsession has been trying to figure out where things go, and now we're getting some help. And I think we thought we had outsmarted the people that are experts at that, but from what Kevin's been texting me, I think they are the experts. And so I'm looking forward to going home and seeing what they've done. But
I'm looking for you bringing us some extra omelet pans. I don't think I have an omelet pan. I have lots of pans. I don't have an omelet
And on YouTube, some of our YouTube friends are telling us their current obsessions. Alex says, my current obsession right now is finding some fall candles with fun and unique scents. Also local made. Well, there's going to be the Elder Street Market on November 1st, and they're going to have art and all local vendors downtown at the Elder Art.
Well, can you find candles there? It's hard to find candles.
Yes.
You have to know Brandon Rottinghouse,
Brandon
our
Rottinghouse
political guy. He
makes
and his
candles.
son make candles.
We
they make cool ones.
We also got a text that says, my nieces and nephews are currently obsessed with K-pop demon hunters. I was skeptical at first, but then I got behind it, seeing how much fun they had. I watched it with my daughter. Obsessed.
What is it?
So great. It's a Netflix movie, but it's not anime. It's like cartoon, or I don't know exactly the what they
AI?
made it out. Maybe, yeah. And it's a musical, and the music is fabulous, and it's about these 3 singers who are also fighting demons. Anyway, it's very cool. Look it up. I'm obsessed with it. The music is fabulous. I bet if you heard some of the songs, you would be like, oh, I had no idea that song was actually connected to K-pop demon hunters.
As we continue to chat about our current obsessions, what are yours? Share them with us. What's taking up all your free time? 713-440-8870. Or you can text them to us or even email us. I do want to mention, when you asked me what my current obsession was, I really never told you what it was. Here's something fun. You ready for something fun?
Yeah.
Yes.
2 of them aren't ready for something fun. So it's just going to be between me and you. When they made the original movie Dracula, how many of you know this story? So they made Dracula in 1931, something like that, Bela Lugosi. And while they were filming that movie during the day, at night, they were filming the movie again with an all-Spanish cast, Spanish-speaking cast, with a different director. And they shot it on the same sets, and they would try and match the day's work that night and shoot the same thing so that they could do it. And that movie was lost for many years, and about, I think it was 25 years ago or so, they found the print of what's called the Spanish Dracula. And a lot of film historians, a lot of film critics say it's a much better movie than the Dracula we all know and love. So I've gotten obsessed with watching it. There's a Universal Monster channel on one of those like free, get all the movies you want free channels that are out there in the streaming world. Mm-hmm. And there's a Universal Monster one, and they've been airing the Spanish Dracula. And I was watching it last night, and I knew I had to go to bed, but I kept watching it. Because they've also restored it. It's really a crisp print, but it's so funny how different it is, but shot on the same set, same story, and how the director wouldn't let the actors see what they were shooting during the day with what we'll call the American cast. And so they could then bring their own interpretation of the roles to the screen.
So what did you think?
I actually think it's a better film.
Yeah.
Really?
It's much more, it's not the iconic moments you see of Bela Lugosi with the cape and the way he dramatically said his lines. But the Spanish one, and I'm not sure if he's really Spanish or Mexican. It went for the Mexican market originally, but it was Spanish language, so they refer to it as the Spanish Dracula. But he just has a more natural way about him. But look it up. There's videos online where they compare shots and stuff and just the vision of the Spanish director to the American director. It's really fascinating.
Nice.
That is really
So that's what I'm
interesting.
obsessed with.
So, well, speaking of shows, my British computer guy's current obsession is the TV show Black Rabbit with Jason Bateman. I know. I know nothing about it, but I really like Jason Bateman. I think he's really good. So
yes,
I will quickly just
out.
Before we get into that, I just want to say we just got notes. So on NPR, they did a whole story on the Spanish Dracula. So you can find it at npr.org or go through our station.
2022. Yeah.
Spanish Dracula finds new blood. Very clever.
What laugh is that?
That's the Sesame Street.
Oh,
Count
the
Dracula.
Count. 1,
2, 3. Yes.
Now, I just went into the owl who eats a Tootsie Roll Pop. 1, 2, 3. Crunch.
So something I don't think our listeners realize is that Ernie does fantastic impressions. Like he can impersonate people, and all the time in meetings he does it.
That's not true, but
It
I
is very
appreciate
true.
your lack of understanding.
My current obsession isn't super current. I mean, but it is the Labubu. We officially are a Labubu family. We got the little thing from
let's
K-pop
rewind
Mart.
that a little bit. What is a Labubu?
Labubu is it's this little stuffed animal, and it's kind of this unboxing phenomenon that goes on. You don't know which one you're going to get. People download the app, the K-pop, or it's the Pop Mart app, and then you wait, and they have a drop, and so you have to get in, and they drop that they have the open release, and they sell out really fast. I have a friend actually from church, because I've also heard that there's a whole group of people that think they're demonic, and
oh, no.
and I'm like, I got it, and I was like, really? This it's a toy. Anyway, so my kids are not. I'm pretty strict on trends and things and what they watch and what they consume, and I was like, you know what? Sure. I had a friend, Jenna Lytle, who was like, I'm obsessed with this. And so she got on it, and she goes, we got a Labubu. So my kids got the Labubu. The real one is called a Labubu. The fake one is called a Lafufu. So if you buy one off Amazon, you get it.
When I first heard about these, I thought they were something to do with Lululemon. I was so out of the loop.
It's a lie.
And
They're
these little
collectibles.
gross-looking little demon babies.
It's the modern day Beanie Baby. Think about the Cabbage Patch Kid. That's what we're working with.
Well, Kodak has released these little teeny cameras that they're following the Labubu phenomenon. Where there's 6 different ones. You don't know which one you're going to get. You have to. They're always sold out. They had a place where you could sign up for them now, and then at the end of the month they were going to. Well, it's already all full again. So very much the same. And people are going crazy. What is it about us wanting something we don't know what we're going to get?
It's very much like mini brands. A lot of parents will know what the mini brands are. You go and you buy this little sphere thing, and then your kid opens it, and they have different ones. Like they have a spa line, and so you make these tiny little soaps and spa things, or they'll have like a baking one.
With the Kodak camera, though, you can buy the set of all of them.
And then you unbox them.
Right. So then you get all 6 or 8 of them, whatever there are. I think it's 6 designs.
Well, I was going to bring our Labubu in, but my daughter grabbed it before I could.
Well, interestingly, they're called zoomorphic elves.
Oh.
They are exaggerated facial expressions.
Yes, they are.
And they have, they're basically a little monster with sharp teeth, large ears, and a scruffy appearance.
Yes.
I thought they were talking about me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Celeste likes them because it's like having a little Ernie at her house.
Well, they're hugely popular.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. It's a whole thing, and it's very interesting. We're going to try to get somebody on to talk about trends.
There was a story on Build-A-Bear. That Build-A-Bear is, I mean, the stocks through the roof. It's become this big, the malls where Build-A-Bears were, they don't have as much foot traffic. So now they're on all these cruise ships. So when you have your kids on these cruise ships, you can Build-A-Bear there.
Good, it gives them something to do when they're on the cruise ship.
Well, yeah, and apparently they're huge in terms of popularity. It's all come back. So maybe these whole stuffed animals, which with the tech and the video games and all of that, it's kind of nice.
That there's something to still surprise you.
You're right.
Still animals are
fun, and the kids say, "Oh, it was so funny because my kids were playing with it outside, and all the neighborhood kids were like." You got a Labubu. My kids never get the cool things, and they were like, "We got a Labubu."
We had a text. The current obsession is playing lots of Tetris.
Tetris, yeah, that's a throwback. Tetris was back in Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Nicole L is obsessed with Dancing with the Stars. I didn't know that was back on.
And dumplings.
And Dancing with the Stars this week was One Hit Wonders.
Oh, we brought that up because today's One Hit Wonder Day.
So there you go.
Dancing with the Stars, it's very interesting now that it's moved off of the main stage. It's kind of on the streaming channel. It's funny to see people reacting to it so differently than whenever.
Quickly, before we go, Alex Garza wants us to bring back checks.
Checks.
Yeah, but I was cheap. I would just use the light blue ones, nothing fancy, and the free check cover that they give you.
Oh, that little plasticky vinyl thingy.
But that brings us to the end of our current obsessions for the week, and we will take yours all week long. Just put current obsessions in the subject line and send us an email, talk@hellohouston.org, or you can always text us, 713-440-8870. It also brings us to the end of our show today. We want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow for Friday. We're going to have some Friday fun with more conversations and a lot more fun. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Growing Up Jewish, a contemporary art exhibit celebrating North America's vibrant Jewish community. Details at HMA.